So now we're going to use our Storyboard Pro features to make our board into an animatic. To do that, we need to be in Timeline View, and we've already looked at how you can drag on the ends of panels to define their length. Or if you want, in the panel window, you can give a panel an exact duration. We've also looked at how you can animate the camera and your drawing layers by adding keyframes to the timeline, and how you can use the play controls to preview the animatic. But the big missing piece that we haven't looked at yet is sound. To import sound, we need at least one audio track on the timeline, which we have by default. We're going to need to add more eventually, and you can do that by either using this button in the sound toolbar, or you can right-click underneath the timeline and choose New Audio Track. Then, we need to actually add some sound to these tracks. There are a couple ways you can do that. First of all, you can record sound directly onto the timeline. If we go to File, Import, Record Sound, then we get this box. This lets us make a recording and then add it to the timeline using these settings. We need to choose if we want to record to the current track or to a new one, and whether to put the recording at the first frame of our timeline or wherever we currently have the playhead. And then we can choose whether we want to overwrite existing sound clips if our recording overlaps with them, or fill next available frames will only let this recording be long enough to fill empty space before the next sound clip on the timeline. If you did already have stuff on the timeline, it would probably be safest just to record on a new track and move it later. Then you can just click Record, and you can record whatever lines you want to go onto your timeline. And when you're done, click the Stop button. Then you can click play to check the recording, and you can record whatever lines you want to go onto your timeline. And when you're done, click the Stop button. And you can give the clip a name here. Then click OK, and it gets added to the timeline. Now if we have the sound enabled on our playback controls, we'll hear the sound when we play the timeline. And you can record whatever lines you want to go onto your timeline. And when you're done, click the Stop button. If you want to hear your sound as you just scrub the timeline, you can enable sound scrubbing with this button or on the right-click menu. You can record whatever lines you want to go onto the timeline, and when you're done, Now, I'm not going to be recording the sound for this animatic. I have it all recorded already. So let's look at importing sound. We can import any WAV, AIF, AIFF, or MP3 files. You can either go to File, Import Sound Files, or right-click and choose Import Sound Clips. Then we can click the folder to browse for the file that we want to import. And then we have the same options from before. We'll add it to the current track at the current position. And since there's nothing on the soundtrack at this point, we don't need to worry about it overwriting anything. Then you have the option to default to these options, but I'm going to leave that unchecked for now. Then we click OK, and that file is now on the timeline. If we want to trim it, we can click and drag on the ends to move the start and stop points. And if the clip actually has more than one line or more than one sound in it, you can move the playhead in the middle and right-click and choose Split Clip at Current Frame. Then you can click and drag to move the pieces apart. Now, once there's a lot of sound on the timeline, you might need some help staying organized. So to do that, we can color code our clips. If you right-click, you can choose Set Color to add a color to the clip. You might want to assign different colors to different characters or to distinguish sound effects from dialogue. Now let's look at how we control the volume of a clip. The first thing we need to do is right-click and make sure Show Waveform is checked. Then also make sure Show Volume is checked. Then we get this line running through each clip that indicates the volume. If you hold the Alt key and click on the line, it gives you a control point which you can use to move the volume up or down. And you can use multiple control points to fade the volume of a clip up or down. This is going to be important later. Alt-click again if you want to delete a point. Lastly, in between shots, we have the option to add transitions like dissolves and wipes. We just select the shot that we want to be the first part of the transition and right-click and choose Add Transition. It defaults to a dissolve, as you can see over here in the panel window when we select it. And you can change the length of the dissolve here. We can also change it to an edge wipe and set its direction. Or we can do a clock wipe and set its start angle and direction here. We can also do a slide transition which shifts the whole image on or off the screen. Now the only transition that our script called for was at the very beginning of this scene when we're fading back from the flashback. But it would make more sense to wait and add that transition after this final scene has been recombined into the full project that we split it from. So I'm not going to worry about that. That's all we need to know to get started. From here, the process will look a lot like the previous animatic we made from our Photoshop board. It's mostly about importing sound to the timeline and timing out the panels to be the right duration to fit the sound. In the next video, I'll take you through the process of turning this board into a full-featured animatic. I'll see you there!